the future of growth in Africa, we're still going to have these kind of these slow growth channels. So the slow growth channels are going to be commodities, are going to be agriculture and specialist agriculture, and are going to be service exports, of which only a tiny proportion of the population can possibly participate in because of the concentrated education. So we have those kind of bread and butter, slow burn exports that are going to be able to drive growth. But there is this possibility that technological change will discover another traversable rich product set, in which case, that this is very, very good news. If we have to continue to rely on commodities being the lion's share, of subsoil minerals being the lion's share of growth drivers, then the critical thing is governance. That under those circumstances, the best outcome, the dream outcome, is a Botswana model. That you have resource-driven growth, but you use that resource in the most inclusive way as possible, and you use it to make the non-tradable sector and the value chain around your resource as efficient and productive as you can.
Well, so the one big cross-border flow that's intensifying is data flows. So far, there's not really an African voice in those discussions. 70 plus countries have agreed in the World Trade Organization to get together now and start debating rules on this, and Nigeria is the only African country that's signed up to be part of those debates. Understandably, I think a lot of countries are worried about this agenda, but I think at least to be in the room and developing a national policy, a regional and a kind of pan-African policy on data regulation, and then taking that globally is really, really important for the future.
I hold the chair at the University of Dar es Salaam as in development, but I also am a visitor at Oxford University, primarily for now working as a co-director with Stephen Deacon, directing the activities of Pathways for Prosperity Commission. We are developing a toolkit which is essentially a framework to help countries apply the key messages and findings from our work. Countries that are preparing to be digitally ready, countries that need to develop strategies for getting themselves ready to transition to a digital economy. And that toolkit is being piloted in 3 countries now, in South Africa, in Mongolia, and we are just about to start that also in Ethiopia. And we do hope that one of the key legacy is actually through that instrument, so that work and findings of the Commission continue to be alive after its own conclusion at the end of 2019.
On the use of modern genetic technologies, I think what we're going to need to generate useful genetic technologies for farmers in developing countries will be, as it has been for decades now, will be highly localized, carefully targeted genetic technologies that meet the conditions of individual growing regions. We know that agricultural technologies are highly location specific, and the same thing that works in Iowa or in Kent is unlikely to work in Uganda. And the same thing that works in northern Uganda is unlikely to work in southern Uganda. So part of this is a story of developing capacity and capabilities within national agricultural research systems. Part of it is figuring out how to transfer not just genetic technologies, but models of developing genetic technologies from the private sector and from public sector institutions in rich countries to contexts in developing countries.
in some ways trying to move away from the silos of sectors and industries and digging a little bit deeper into firms and labor occupations rather than industry. I think that's something that we've started to do, but we can do more of.
One source of data that would allow us to do a little bit more in-depth research on firm side are census of enterprises, census of activities in our countries. And why is that important? Because one of the key questions that is still lingering, and to me that is still not researched enough, is firm growth in Africa, right? It's firm creation, and firm growth. And you cannot analyze that properly without having good census data and panel data. So if we could build those data sets, then an area of research that I see still promising in Africa is one of what really drives firm creation, what really why is it that African firms are so small? Because the average size of the African firm is actually smaller than any other part of the world. Why don't our firms grow is a question that I still believe we need to do a little bit more to understand.